Hello and welcome to another video. And in this time, it's yet again another character guide. And the character for today, as you see it on the screen, or you saw it on the screen a moment ago, it's Aura. Specifically, the original version of Aura, the Defiant Best Tamer, also known as Warrior Aura. And as you can see here, my Aura is already 6 stars, 29k combat power, but doesn't have her exclusive arc light. And her combat power isn't all that high for me being level 200. So, what does this say? Well, it says that I do not play too much with Aura. She's not one of my main concerns or anything, or my main characters. But I do know how to play this Aura because the character is very simple to understand and very, very simple to play with another characters from the similar class, the water class. So I can confidently say what is good for her and what combos can be done with her, and have some kind of good synergy in the battlefield. So to start with the easiest things, with Aura, we know that she is a warrior class character. She's single target unit, specialized on chases and multi hits. We see that overall she is very much balanced. She has A on physical defense, speed, health, attack, and 1B on magical defense. That means that is her weaker side, but overall she is like well rounded around everything. Like she has a good amount of health, a good amount of damage, nice speed, and nice physical defense. Now on the accessories, we can see that at tier level 3, she is gonna gain 20% counter rate. At tier level 6, she gains 10% more health, and at tier level 9, she's gonna gain 5% more damage boost. That is an increase on all kinds of damage from Aura. Now, going quickly, so I don't make this extremely long, the skills of Aura. This is like the most important part about her alongside the relics. We can see that the basic attack, the Queen Slash, deals physical damage equal to 105% of her attack, and that goes all the way to 120. I think that is average for the warriors, so there's not like an impressive amount of damage there. But she can change this skill into another skill, let's say, or another attack if she has her mounted stance. That is when she jumps into Quadrasil, like the giant chameleon that she has. And when she has her mount, she's gonna have an increase on critical by 20% and critical damage increase by 20% as well. And not only that, but she's gonna boost her true meter by 30% every 3 uses of her basic attack, unless she's 6 stars. Like mine, that is right now at 6 stars, she's gonna boost her own true meter 30% every 2 uses of her basic attack. So it could be a basic attack and a counter, or a counter and a chase, or 2 chases, or things like that, and already is boosting herself. Now, the passive skill, the weakness scan. Every attack from Aura has the chance of inflicting 1 weakness expose debuff for 2 rounds. And after an ally attacks an enemy with the weakness exposed debuff, Aura is gonna have 70% fixed chance to launch a chase using her basic attack, and that can only happen a maximum of 2 times per round. And the weakness exposed is right here. It's a debuff that increases damage dealt by Aura to that specific target by 6%, and that can be stacked up all to 5 times. That means a total of 30% extra damage at max number of stacks. So Aura basically encourages the player to keep hitting the same target with her over and over again, instead of trying to use one skill of Aura on one enemy and then another in a different enemy, and so no. She is more like hit the same enemy until it dies, because the more you hit the same enemy, the more damage she's gonna be doing. Also, if we upgrade this passive skill to the max level, we see that when she has the mounted stance, her mount, each chase has 30% fixed chance to reduce the cooldown of a random skill by 1 round. very similar to what Vermaris does. So she attacks with a chase, and she will have a chance of reducing the cooldown of either the Whip of Destruction or the Hunting Strike. I'm talking about those. It's time for the Whip of Destruction. It's also another skill that does physical damage from 130% of her attack as physical damage all the way to 156%, which is decent. I think it's a nice amount, but it's not as big as, for example, Water Kyotos that is able to reach numbers like 180 and 210%. So this skill is powerful, but is not as powerful as other warriors. So this is more to, keep doing damage and put the weakness exposed debuff. Because before she hits, she has 100% basic chance to inflict one stack of weakness exposed for 2 rounds. And not only that, but if she is on her mounted stance, it's gonna convert this attack into a 2-hit attack. That each hit is gonna deal half the original damage. So at the end of the day, even if it's a 2-hit attack, it's the same amount of damage. And the only change is that now each attack will have a chance of putting weakness exposed. So at the end of the turn, instead of putting one debuff of weakness exposed, she's gonna have the chance of inflicting 2 stacks of that. And also, when she's attacking only one enemy unit, it's gonna deal 20% higher damage. I know she's single target, so this doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, well, she always is gonna hit one target. But for what I have been testing, I think this refers when there's only one enemy remaining. Like, you're facing a boss with 2 minions, you already killed the minions and things like that, or you're on multiplayer and the enemy is on their last character. That is when the 20% higher damage takes effect. Also, at max level, this skill nullifies the target effect resistance when inflicting weakness exposed. So that means that that basic chance almost becomes a fixed chance. So it doesn't matter if you're facing uh, a PDL with 10% effect resistance, or a Lupus Regina with 60% effect resistance, or an Albedo with 100%. If this skill is max level, that is not gonna matter to Aura, and she's gonna go and inflict the weakness exposed. Now, the ultimate, probably the most important skill for Aura, um, the Hunting Strike. It's another skill that does physical damage based on her attack, starting at 210% and scaling all the way to 250% of her own attack. Basically, she gets a little cinematic. She gets into the Quadrasil, her mount, one of her pets, and does damage. But before applying the damage, she has 100% basic chance to dispel one buff from the enemy target. So she can take away just one buff, and she's gonna have the mounted stance for 3 rounds. Uh, if she's 4 stars or less, it's gonna be only 2 rounds. But at 5 stars and more, it gets extended to 3 rounds. So it's decent to have her at least at 5 stars. Also, at the start of the game, when you're still upgrading your characters and so, she has to wait one turn before using the ultimate. She cannot spam it right away unless you level up the skill. If you level up the skill, then you can. But at level 1, she has to wait before using her ultimate. Also, at level 5, the skill has a little change that before hitting, she has 100% basic chance to dispel not one but now 2 buffs from the enemy target, which is not a big difference nowadays with the meta, with characters like Robo Hamusuke or Seshi that are able to take away from 2 to 4 buff at the same time. But back in the day, taking away 2 buffs was like the norm, so that wasn't bad at all. And yeah, the ideal thing will be that you use the Hunting Strike as the first skill from Aura, so she gets into her mounted stance, because when she does that, she's gonna enhance some of her skills, and that cannot be dispelled, so the enemies cannot take away her mount. So once that she is on her mount, her Whip of Destruction will have more chances of applying weakness exposed. Well, not more chances, but can apply one more stack. She is gonna have more fixed chance to do chases on the enemies with the weakness exposed, and her basic attacks are gonna have 20% more critical damage and 20% more critical chance, which is very nice, I will say, because that helps you reach 100% crit in some attacks or some circumstances without actually investing that much equipment only for critical chance on her. Now, uh, quickly going here to the awakening levels, you can see I don't have her upgraded. But if I were to give you like an idea, I will probably give you one of these two. Either this, basically using the square gems to give attack on percentage. The round gems, I will recommend you these ones, the might gem crit. Then for the rare gem, the fortitude gem speed, because she's already a nice character on terms of speed. So if you can upgrade that, it will be nice to help her keep up with the newest characters with S on speed and so. And the specialized gem for the classes, or for the last kind of gem, you can either give the one that gives attack or increases the attack, or the specialized one for the warriors that gives counter rate, because Aura already has counter rate, so she's gonna benefit a lot from that. So the green gems for attack, the red gems for crit, the yellow one for speed, and the blue one for counter rate or attack, you decide. And the other option is something like this: use the green ones for defense, red ones for critical chance or critical damage, then the yellow one for either health or defense, and the last one remains the same. That way, Aura is gonna keep a little bit more of her original role as a warrior, and she will be able to tank a little bit more of damage. Because if you go all in for critical chance, she might be short of either physical defense, magical defense, or health, and might be exposed to literally being one shot by other characters. So, now that I said that, in terms of the arc light, you see that I have Hymn of Loyalty, that basically gives certain chance of gaining a random buff when using the ultimate. And from those could be increasing the turn meter by 20%, recovering 10% HP, or gaining attack boost. Honestly, this is not a really great arc light or anything like that. I just have it on her as a placeholder basically, because it was useful on the early game for me, but not exactly now. But something that you can try or you can do is using the Onwards to Triumph. That is exactly this one that I have on Shelter. Increases the attack, the HP on flat amounts, and also the attack on a percentage. And has the general effect that increases the damage the next skill deals after basic attack by 21%. Which doesn't sound like it's much, but honestly, it is much. And works really nice because she needs, well, the Arclight needs a basic attack to buff the damage of the next skill. And what does Aura does? Well, she has A on speed, so she's not gonna be the first one to play unless she's with a bunch of characters that are B on speed or maybe A as well. But ideally, you want another character to play before Aura. You attack someone and hope that you have the chance of Aura triggering a chase, even if she doesn't have her mount. If she does that, she already has the Arclight activated because the chases do the basic attack. And then when she throws her ultimate, she's gonna enjoy that extra 21% damage. But even, let's say you didn't get lucky and she didn't chase. Okay, then you have your first turn with Aura, you throw her ultimate, you do a high amount of damage, she gets into her mount and all of that. Then you use other characters to attack enemies, and Aura will chase because her mount gives her 70% fixed chance of chasing the enemies. So you throw an attack another enemy, Aura is gonna go after that enemy, or more likely is gonna do that. It's gonna attack, it's gonna put the weakness exposed debuff on them, and when she she did the moment she did the chase, that moment she activated the arc light. So by the next turn that she throws something like the Whip of Destruction, that skill is gonna have the 21% extra damage. And something that I noticed is that, for example, she does the first chase, she activates the arc light. Then you use, I don't know, another character to attack the same target, and triggers another chase from Aura. Okay, then Aura goes. That Queen Lash attack, that basic attack, is gonna have the extra 21% damage from the arc light as well, because it counts as a skill even if it's a basic attack, and doesn't lose the effect. So by the next turn of Aura, the second turn, when she can throw the Whip of Destruction, she still has that 21% damage. And even if during the enemy's turn they attack Aura and she goes in and does a counter attack, she still enjoys that 21% extra damage on the counter attack because she uses the basic attack and doesn't lose the effect of the arc light. So she still has the extra damage from her real next turn, which is really, really nice because in a character like Aura that is able to constantly chase counter enemies and so, that means that she basically is gonna permanently have the buff from that exclusive, well, no, not exclusive, but that legendary arc light. And we can see that her arc light is right here. Its power deterrence. Our exclusive effect is that when chasing a target with weakness exposed, she's gonna increase damage dealt by 15% and reduce the cooldown of her ultimate by 1 round for every 4 chases. And that 15% increased damage can go all the way to 35%. And at 1 star, she gains flat amounts of HP on attack and 15% counter rate, and at max level is 30% counter rate, which I will say is really, really nice because most arc lights usually repeat again attack or HP there, don't give an extra stat, and this one does gives an extra stat. So if you're thinking like if Aura max it out is worth it, or you should max it out to, have like a really heavy hitter on the team, things like that, or you're already using her but you're having doubts like, should I keep upgrading Aura or I change her for another character? And so, if you want a single target character that, hits really, really heavy the enemy, but it's just a single target character, and even in the case that you lose, 2 characters on your team or something like that, even with that, can still hold their own. Aura is really good. Like Aura is really, really good to that for that. She can destroy enemies on one, and not only that, but she also is really useful because she is not like, oh, I use her for the ultimate, so I one shot this enemy and that's all. No, you use that, but you can also have her to do counters, to do chases with correct, correct teams, and so she can even do assist attacks. But that is not exactly the ideal for her, and because she's a warrior, she is kind of balanced. So if the enemies want to focus her, she's not gonna be destroyed as easily as the enemies might expect, like when they attack a mage or a healer or a ranger, for example. So I will recommend you, if you don't have her exclusive arclight, onwards to triumph. But if you have her exclusive arclight, use that and upgrade that arclight. Now, the next section that is usually the most lengthy one, the relic set. As you can see, I have the sparkle termination set on her, and from now I would say that is the best set that you can have on Aura. There's another option that I will say, and that is this one, the star set, that also the game recommends you, and maybe you can force Vermaris set, and I'm gonna tell you each one and their wise. The easiest one to say is the star set. The star set is my second recommendation. As you can see, increases the attack from 10 to 15% depending on the set quality, and increases the counter, the assist, and the chase attacks damage by 25% or 35% if the set is max quality. Why is this good? Well, it's very obvious, right? Aura does a lot of chases and she can counter. So you're upgrading all of the damage that she does out of her turn when she chases and counters the enemies. That's all. That's simple as that. The Vermare set, let me search for it. Here it is. You can see it increases the critical chance from 10 to 15% and gives from 20 to 40% chance to reduce the skill cooldown by 1 round after using the skill. The reason why this is useful is because if you have Aura upgraded on the stars and the levels of the ultimate and the basic attack, she's basically constantly giving herself a 2-meter boost every certain number of attacks with the basic attack, and at the same time, every certain number of chases, she's gonna reduce the cooldown of her ultimate if she has her own arc light. So why not double down on that? You can have Aura attacks upgrading, well, or not upgrading, but reducing the cooldown of her ultimate, while Vermare set might be reducing the cooldown of the Whip of Destruction, or reducing another round from the ultimate so she can constantly be spamming the Hunting Strike. That is a hit that does over 200% of her total damage, or total attack as damage to the enemies. So that might be for a chance of being able to spam the Hunting Strike to the enemies over and over again, her heaviest and hardest attack. But then there is the termination set. That is the one that I will say is the only ideal option. And the termination set, as you can see, gives from 10 to 15% critical chance depending on the set quality, and the special effect that nullifies 20% of the target defense, and that can be 30% instead if the set is max quality. And this is really nice for two reasons. One, gives critical chance. Aura already has critical chance from her mounted stance. Her mounted stance, when she's on Quadrasil, gives her extra 20% critical chance and critical damage. So having an extra 15% here already puts Aura on 35% critical damage. So, well, at least on her basic attacks, her ultimate will have 20, no, 15 at this point. But that is already like almost an entire third of the goal for this type or kind of characters that are reaching the 100% critical chance. And the other is that, well, basically you're nullifying part of the enemy's defense. A warrior that can do critical damage and also is able to nullify enemy defense, that is really good, because it will allow the warrior not to only have more chances of quickly dispatching enemy rangers or mages, but also gives the warrior the chance of actually being able to fight against tanks and doing damage to them, because most of the time when the warrior is alive and the ranger died, or the mage has been stunned and cannot do damage, things like that, is the warrior the one that uh, has to do damage, and usually they cannot take down the tanks. They can stun them or control them in some ways, but they cannot kill them usually. Well, with this, you will have the chance of actually doing damage to the tanks, and the enemy might have to decide if they attack your main damage dealer, let's say a ranger, or your warrior, and they will have to see what is worth it, because the warrior might be harder to kill, but is still doing damage, and the ranger might be easy to kill in one turn or two, but they know that the warrior might retaliate and the warrior might take another kill and leaving the situation exactly as it started. So that is why I would recommend termination set. Now, with the relics, the relic attributes, I do have placeholders because, as I said before, Aura is not one of my main characters that I use, but I still have some decent things. Like here, for example, I think that the first sub attributes that are here are decent, at least on the termination mask. Double A, one for effect precision, one for attack. Effect precision, so she can put the weakness exposed more easily. The attack, so even if she doesn't do a critical hit, she still hits hard. A B on critical chance, well, for obvious reasons, and an S on physical defense, so she's not, easily one-shotted by the enemy. Here is another that I will say is a good example. Triple A, one on damage boost to increase all kinds of damage from her, one on critical chance for obvious reasons, one on reduction to the damage over time. That is not exactly important right now, but like we're gonna treat it like as a nice extra, and an S on speed. An S on speed is decent, or well, not decent. Honestly, it's really good in a character with A on speed. Is really good, because if you get enough of those, your character with A on speed is able to compete with characters with S on speed, and they will not expect it. Now, on the weapon, I do not have as good stats, but I have a little bit more of critical chance, health, magical defense, and critical damage. They held on magical defense to, compensate, and she doesn't fall behind on her defensive capabilities. Critical chance and critical damage, because that is really good and combos with her. Here again, health, critical chance, critical damage. Yeah, honestly, I know they do not look like the greatest stats ever because there's not many S, but if you want to, have a better example, I'm gonna use my Entoma. As you can see, she's also using a termination set, and let's see. The weapon has S on attack for when it doesn't crit, A on critical chance, A on critical damage, and A on defense, so it doesn't become a squishy character. That is good. I will say this is a good relic, a really good relic. Here on the chest plate, basically, B on critical chance, it could be better, yes, but it's at least something. Double S, one on physical defense and one speed. I will say that is really good. It's already boosting the defensive capabilities as well as the offensive, and the speed is giving utility and the chance of playing, before other enemies and so. The A in attack, really nice. So uh, you know, the skills keep scaling with damage. Then the base might be the weakest part. Effect resistance, it might be like an extra because uh, a little bit of effect resistance doesn't make a difference. It only makes a difference when you have high amounts of effect resistance. So it's like an extra. B on attack, a little extra damage there. A on damage boost, again increasing all kinds of damage, incredibly good. And A on speed. So this character keeps, surprising the enemies with her speed. And then the mask. C on HP, that is not ideal, but imagine this is a B or an A, it would be really good. So this character resists a little bit more all kinds of damage from the enemies. And then triple S. One on effect resistance, that I said before is good when it's on high amounts, but not on low. But this now that is 19 with 15 here, it's a decent amount now. An S on critical chance and an S on speed. This is really good, and overall, all the sub attributes from Tree's relic set are, I would say, ideal. If you could, choose all your sub attributes and so, I might recommend you, or I will tell you that try to prioritize having, the crit, the speed, the critical chance, the attack, and if you could have instead of effect resistance, uh, you could have either damage boost or critical damage. That will be the ideal. And now that I'm right here, I can also show you the enhancements or the enchantments. I don't know. But these things right here with the little potions or the elixirs. Because on this character as well, I have exactly what I would recommend you as well for Aura. First of all is punch for punch. From level 1 to level 5 increases your critical chance, and that's it. But from level 6 to level 10 also increases damage boost, and that boosts all kinds of damage, which is already very, very nice. And Aura is already having critical chance with her ultimate and her basic attack, so that is nice. Also, Unstoppable is a must-have with Punch for Punch because it's the other half. Increases the critical damage now instead of the critical chance from level 1 to 5. And from level 6 to level 10 also gives assist rate, which is nice because it will have the chance of jumping and doing extra damage to the enemy without using the chase. And these ones can be stacked up. I have seen on my moment that from time to time when both activate, the character might jump in, attack, doing either the chase or the assist, jump back to their place, and then the text for the next action appears, and they jump again to the same target and do the other thing. So if they jump first and do the chase, they go back, then they jump again and do the assist. Or if they do the assist first, they jump back, then the text of chase appears, they jump against the enemy again, they do the chase, and they go back. So they can do both chase and assist or assist and chase. So one doesn't cancel the other. And that means that you can basically double up the potential of Aura if you get the Unstoppable enhancement to level 10, because maybe 15% assist rate. If you combine that with Eclair that is able to give like another 20%, you will have an Aura with 35% assist rate and 70% chance of doing chases. That is really nice. But it might be hard to get, this enhancement to level 10. But anyway, I would recommend you Punch for Punch, Unstoppable. I would recommend you as well Endless Cycle because Aura is a warrior. And I would recommend you Endless Cycle over uh, things like Fortitude Mag, that is magical defense, and the one of the or physical defense, because health is overall what tanks everything. If you upgrade her physical defense, you're exposed to the magical damage, and vice versa. So if you upgrade the health, you can make your aura a little bit more are resistant to all kinds of damage from the enemy. So I will recommend you Punch for Punch, Unstoppable, Endless Cycle, maybe one level of Thunderous Surge that is right here, that increases the critical damage that the target takes if they have shock. But for that, you will have to combine Aura with a shock team member. And I will recommend you 100% to max this enhancement, the Hot Pursuit. Hot Pursuit at level 1 makes the chase and assist attacks deal additional damage equal to 13% attack. Tank can go up all the way to 26, 43, 61, and 80% attack, with additional 40% nullified defense during that damage. So, I would recommend your priority number 1 and 2 will be Punch for Punch and Unstoppable. Number 3, Hot Pursuit. Then you can decide if you give it a try to Thunder Surge. Endless Cycle is not needed on Aura, but I highly recommend it so your Aura doesn't die. And as the last one, I will recommend you Stranded. That is right here. Is this one. Targets inflicted with control effects receive 6% more skill damage, and that can scale to 12, to 20, to 30% more skill damage, and to 40% more skill damage, with the chance of reducing one random skill by one round. So I will say this is really nice. That way you're increasing the critical chance of Aura, giving her damage boost, increasing her critical damage, giving her a chance of having assist rate, increasing her damage against control targets, targets that are stunned, frozen, taunted, or silenced. And not only that, but you're also giving her a little bit of HP so she doesn't get killed. That will be my recommendation, or at least my ideal enhancements for her. I know that for a warrior that has Aeon attack, I did not recommend that much attack, but you can try to have it. Like, if you get relics that have critical chance, critical damage, speed, or health and attack, put it. Like, every time you get attack, it's a good extra. But attack should not be your priority, because Aura is already giving you critical chance on her kit. So try to max out her critical chance, so every time she hits as hard as possible, and she's still a warrior, so she has a little bit of stats that back her up in case that the enemy tries to attack her. And because of that, she would not be one-shotted or two-shotted, and then she will have the chance of countering the enemy with more critical damage, and the counter might kill the enemies. And that's why, for example, I have 70.7% critical chance of landing a critical hit on Aura, because on the battlefield, when I activate Aura Ultimate, the Hunting Strike, and then she chases or counters, for example, she has extra 20. That means that she has a total of 90.7% crit. I know it's not 100%. It could be 100%, but I decided to let it like this because at the end of the day, I do not use Aura for my high level combats or anything like that. I have other characters that do the job. That doesn't mean Aura is bad, but it means that Aura shares a role that many other characters already have. Like, many characters can chase, and many characters, many more, can do high critical damage, and a lot of them already have high critical chance on their kits. The only thing I will say that makes, or well, the only two things that makes Aura stand out from the rest of warriors and characters that can crit is, first of all, she is probably the character that can do the most chases on the game, unless you count Seshi max it out. But in a normal circumstance, for a normal player that might not be able to max all the characters, like myself, for example, that I cannot max them all, Aura is the character that has the potential to do the most chases. So if you want a character with chase capabilities, she's the best, because on her own can do the chases. Seshi can do chases to all of your attacks, but you need to max her out for that, and you need her to be faster than all the enemies. Momon can do chases, guaranteed chases, so you don't have to leave it to fate or anything like that, or to the RNG. But for that, you need to activate one skill after that, and the guaranteed chases only last for one turn. Only last until Momon gets the next turn, because then throws another skill and the effect expires. Unless you do something like reactivate his cooldowns with another character or the Vermare set, so you constantly spam the 1 versus 1000 skill. But that is not exactly the best idea. So, on her own, Aura, first of all, is the one that can do the most chases without external help or being maxed out. That's what makes her stand out. And the second thing that makes her stand out more than most of the enemies is, sorry, most of the other characters and so, is how spammy she can be. Like, even if she is not 6 stars, she is gonna get 30% turn meter every 3 attacks, of her basic skill, in a character that can chase a ton, and that also can counter a ton. Well, that means that she is constantly giving herself a boost of turn meter. Here is she is constantly giving herself a 30% turn meter boost, so she constantly outspeeds other characters that should be playing before her, and she constantly has a turn. At the end of the day, she might have almost double the turns that your other characters on the game or on your team. Not only that, but if you upgrade, let me see where it is. It was the arc light. If you have the arc light and you upgrade it, not only Aura has more chances of countering, that gives her also more chances of giving herself the turn meter boost, but also reduces the cooldown of her ultimate constantly. And if you pair that with the Vermare set that I told you, you can constantly make her spam ultimates, or you pair her with Clementine, the healer version, or you pair her with Tank Sisita or Pestonia, the characters that are able to reduce cooldown of the other skills. You might be able to have Aura spamming 3 turns in a row. 2 turns might be the Weapon of Destruction and the other one the ultimate, or if you get lucky, 2 turns are the ultimates. So that is what makes Aura stand out. She chases a ton, and she spams both. Spams turns and spams skills. Not like other characters like Momo, for example, that once he throws his skills, you have to wait for the cooldowns and so. No, Aura literally fixes herself all the time. So that will be like the character guide itself. Now the last section is the themes and compositions that I recommend for her. First, theme and composition is incredibly easy, and I'm gonna get it out of the way because this composition now works with any damage dealer. It's the buffers theme. Buffers theme includes Anniversary Albedo, this one right here. To keep it short, Albedo heals, gives shields, gives Indomitable so the ally doesn't die and survives with 1 HP. She gives turn meter boost, she gives debuff immunity, high tier effect resistance boost, and she also is able to give invulnerabilities for 2 entire rounds, twice the same game. So she's the perfect healer to have, and in case the enemies try to focus Aura down, Albedo is the one that is gonna keep her alive. And even if the enemies try to focus simultaneously on Albedo and Aura, she still saves both of them at the same time. The other one is Robohamuske, a tank, a very reliable tank. To keep it short as well, is useful for the laser beam because it stuns the enemies. The ultimate skill increases everyone's physical defense on her team and also reduces 40% of the enemy defense. Pair that with the termination set on Aura, that's a ton of damage. And then you put the adaptive armor that increases everyone's defense and also adds damage equal to 75% of Hamuske physical defense as true damage to all the allies' attacks, considering how much physical defense Hamuske has. That means an extra ton of damage to Aura. Then you can add something like Victim to compensate what Aura is weak at. So you have Aura doing a ton of single target damage, and then you have Victim doing a ton of area of effect damage. And while Aura is physical damage, Victim is magical damage. So you have covered all sides in case you find different enemies. Not only that, but Victim is also capable of, stunning the enemies, and is capable of, you know, uh, in utilizing the enemy's relic effects. So they cannot heal, they cannot reduce cooldowns, they cannot ignore your defense, things like that. Then you have the passive of Victim that also increases everyone's damage on his team based on his attack and missing HP. So even if Victim is a damage dealer himself, he's able to buff everyone else as well. But if you don't like one of those options, you can change one of those options for Pandora's Actor or Pestonia. In like you could change Albedo or Victim or whatever, but ideally not the tank, so you keep frontline. With Pandora's Actor, he's gonna be a captain, so the more buffs he has, the more he's gonna increase the damage and healing of his team all the way to 15%, so even more damage. And the ultimate will be the first thing that you throw before using Aura, and basically he's gonna either steal 4 buffs from the enemy to Aura and himself, or he's gonna give 4 basic buff to Aura and himself if the enemies do not have enough buffs. And with those 4 buffs, you try to keep, a Pandora's Actor from being dispelled from those buffs by the enemy. So by the next turn, you can use Phantom Blades on the enemies with Pandora's Actor. And because he will have 4 or more buffs, ideally, because Hamuske will give him a 5th buff and so. And his passive will make Pandora's Actor copy 1 or 2 buffs at the start of the game. So he will have another extra 2. That means that as soon as he throws Phantom Blades, he will have a chance of using the skill and give debuff immunity, or high tier defense boost, or high tier attack boost, or high tier speed up, or invincibility for 2 rounds to Aura, because Aura might be ideally the one with the highest attack on the team where you're maxing her. So you have Pandora's Actor to constantly help her, constantly buff her, and not only that, but Pandora's Actor, all of his skills not only heal but also do damage to the enemies. So you trigger the chance of Aura to do a chase, and that is really good. Then you could use Pestonia instead, maybe if you don't like Pandora's Actor option. Pestonia is really tanky, so you don't have to worry about the enemies killing her very quickly or anything, because she's a healer and they might focus her. So you don't worry there. The important things here is, of course, aside of the healing, when she heals someone, she gives Divine Persuasion to that someone. It's basically a special buff that gives the chance to that ally to silence the enemy that attacks. So you can heal Aura, then use Aura to attack one enemy, and that enemy that you attacked, if it didn't die, it's silenced. So the next turn cannot throw any skill unless it gets purified by their own healer. And that's really nice. She also gives a recovery and defense boost, so your team, has more survivability. And then her Divine Boon, the ultimate skill, purifies 3 debuffs, heals, basically gives 100% turn meter to the ally, and with her Arc Light, she has the chance of reducing the skill cooldown of the ally that she throws the ultimate at. So Aura is going to have an extra turn thanks to Pestonia, and as well as the healing, the purifying, and also the chance of having, her ultimate or her Whip of Destruction restored, so she can spam it again. That is the buffers team. Is the Robo Hamuske, Anniversary Albedo, Big Team, or you can change one of those for either Pandora's Actors or Pestonia. That is the first one. The second team is a Chase team. A Chase team forcibly will have this moment right here, because his Arc Light increases the damage of his chases every certain number of chases, and his Captain skill increases the damage of the chase attacks when the enemy is 70% health or less. He has guaranteed chases, he does true damage, and his ultimate, if he kills someone, resets a number of hits and attacks another enemy. And you can, make a chain reaction and kill everyone with the ultimate. So you have already 2 characters with chase capabilities. Then you add either, where it is here, you add Seshi, because she can also chase the enemies if she is maxed out. She can chase enemies that are stunned or enemies that are slower than her if she is 6 stars. But if she is not 6 stars, she can only chase enemies that are under control effects. So you have 3 characters that chase, and then you put your tank of trust. If your best tank is Cocytus, you put Cocytus. If your best tank is Hamuske or Shizu or Valkyrie Shalter or Albedo, you put them. Like the ideal thing is you put your best tank and then the other three characters to constantly chase each other's attacks and spam the chase until you kill the enemy before they get their turns. You can ideally change Seshi if you don't want her for something like a healer from the ones that I said, or you could add a second tank to add more, survivability. Like you could add the PDL to put the war barrier, and that barrier will buy time for your team to be constantly chasing. And if they run out of cooldowns, you can get an extra round to get the cooldowns back. So that might be the chase team, and there's also a counter team. The counter team might include characters like the SSR Yuri that is specialized on countering, and every time someone counters, she's gonna give them an increase on damage, and every certain number of counters, she's gonna perform a counter of her own that does area of effect damage. You could also add on the early game things like Lacus Brain, Gasif, or Peshurian to have a little bit of a warrior character that does counter. But ideally, for a nice counter team, you will have the SSR Yuri. You will go in and have the Kokyutos, the tank version, this one, because he increases every one counter attack and the counter damage and counter attack rate or counter rate. Increases it by 20% each, and that will be two characters, Yuri, Kokyutos. Then we're counting with, in this case, we're counting with the aura, the normal aura. I didn't saw her, that's why I got like lost. She has 20% naturally and 15% on her arc light at 1 star, so that's 35. But that can become 35 in total on her arc light if it's maxed out. So a 6 stars arc light plus her 20% counter rate from the accessories is a total of 55. So it's 55 plus the 20 from Kokyutos is 75% counter rate. Then you could add as a second tank Albedo, because she is probably the character with the best counters in the game and the character that has the most chances of countering the attacks of the enemy. And not only that, but she also is really good as a tank and as a control member. So you can, avoid the enemy from using their skills. But if you don't want a second tank, you put Momon, because Momon also has chances of countering, and that also gets increased by Incocutos, and his counter attacks can trigger the weakness detection and do guaranteed critical hits with true damage. So you can decide if you go for double tank and double warrior, or you go for triple warrior and one tank. And also, you could also add Saryusu. Saryusu might be good, might not counter as much as the others because, yeah, he has 20%. And even if you can put something like Battle for the Headwife to increase his counter, he's more based on controlling the enemy than countering. And he doesn't have much synergy on countering, the enemy, aside of adding one more stack of his special debuff. But because he needs 3 stacks, that means that he will need to counter a ton. So you might not make as good use of him as Momon, for example, but he's still a working member of the counter team, and he also works to control the enemies because his ultimate can freeze the enemies and keep them in place so they lose the entire turn. So you decide. You can basically choose double tank, double warrior, or triple warrior, one tank. If you're particularly risky or you know that the enemy cannot one shot you, maybe you can go 4 warriors at once. But the only thing you might have to worry about is that your warriors are not S on speed. Like, for example, one is B, Sarius is A, Aura we already saw that she's A on speed, and Yuri, the SR version, might be like B or something like that. Even worse, she's C. So you might have to, check that out and see what works for you. But you have a chase team, you have buffers team, you have a counter team, and if you worry that maybe one character doesn't have as much counter rate as you might want, or that it feels like it's too little or something like that, you can always put Battle for the Headwife Arclight on them. That is basically the Arclight where Albedo and Shelter are fighting each other. They're yelling at each other, I think. Let me see. Where it is? Yeah, here it is. Is this one? Yeah, it's where they're yelling at each other and are about to kill each other. It gives nice amount of health, attack on flat amounts, and attack on percentage. That the percentage changes depending on the stars. At 1 star, I remember is 5%, and last at 6 stars is like this 10%. But the important part is that gives counter right for the first 2 rounds. So if you fear that one character of the 1 star I told you doesn't have enough counter rate, and you don't have his explosive arc light, you can put Battle for the Head Wife, and that will work just fine. So you have the chase team, the counter team, the buffers team, and the last one is the multi-hit team. I know it sounds weird, and it's because it's not an official team. Let's say it's a weird combination. The multi-hit team includes characters like the Mage Albedo, that it doesn't have basically synergy with Aura, or not any direct synergy, but has a bit. As you can see here, Demonic Whispers of Albedo inflicts chain and damage aggravation on the enemy. Damage aggravation is a debuff that increases damage taken by 30%, and chain it's a debuff where all the other allies with chain take 15% of the damage that the original target receive. So that means, basically Albedo chains two enemies, and if one of the chain enemies receives damage, the other is going to receive 15% of the original damage that the other one received. And damage aggravation increases the damage by 30%. So you have characters like Albedo to put damage aggravation on the enemy, and chain as well, and then you have Aura go in and hit that specific enemy. So the enemy with damage aggravation suffers even more damage than he would originally from Aura skills, and the other chain target is also receiving a little bit of the damage from Aura. But the synergy does not stop there. That also goes with Albedo ultimate skill. And if we go back to the ultimate skill here, the Invader's Doom, you can see that it's a 4-hit attack, that each hit deals magical damage equal to a certain percent of the attack plus 150. The important hit, or the important part, is that it's a 4-hit attack. Why is important a 4-hit attack? Well, it is important because Aura has a 70% fixed chance to perform a chase attack on the enemy every time one ally hits the enemy with the weakness exposed. And sometimes you might be unlucky that you hit one enemy with a single target skill or a single hit attack, and Aura does not chase. And maybe the enemy was so low in HP that you knew the chase was gonna kill the enemy. And because Aura didn't chase the enemy now heals himself, and comes back on the game or something like that. Or you just get angry because you didn't kill it. With this, you basically fix that problem because this skill hits the enemy 4 times. So Aura rolls the probabilities 4 times, and she will have the probability rolling on the first, second, third, and fourth hit to perform the chase. And maybe the first one, or the second one, or the third hit didn't proc the chase, but maybe the fourth hit procced the chase, and then she goes, does the chase, kills the enemy, and everyone is happy except the dead one. And that is why this is kind of like a synergy, as well as if you put Albedo as the captain, she's going to increase the damage of the allies for each debuff that the enemy has. And because Albedo puts a lot of debuffs, she basically gives everyone an extra damage, and Aura also puts debuff, the weakness exposed. Other characters are not exactly as clear on the synergy with Aura as Albedo, but the SR Entoma might be another example. More specifically because of the Sharp Current Talisman, you can throw her ultimate to increase her damage, give herself another turn, increase her speed, give herself more talismans and then throw the Sharp Current Talisman. That is also another multi-hit attack that can go all the way to 7 spells. So, let's see here. When Entoma has 4 or more spells, uses transformers up to 6 spells. Sorry, not 7. So this is even higher than Albedo. She can do a 6-hit attack basically, and each one is gonna roll the probabilities with Aura to do a chase. So with this type of characters, you can basically do more. And with that, for example, you already have a double mage, one warrior, then you can add one tank, or add another character that does multi hits. But that is, to guarantee the chases from Aura. not exactly for more synergies than that. And the last team is a control team. The control team basically is to buff Aura potential to do damage and not to die. You know, it's to keep her safe in a way that she's gonna be able to attack the enemy directly, to do chases to the enemy, and not receiving damage and not having to counter because she will be intact. That includes characters like Sariusu that is able to throw the ultimate, do an area of effect attack, and freeze the enemies so they lose their turn. It includes characters like Victim that is able to stun multiple enemies at once so they do not move. It includes characters like the Raven Black Guardian Albedo version that is able to throw a taunt, so all the enemies are forced to focus on her instead of focus on the weaker allies. That might include characters like Pestonia that are able to silence the enemy or make one ally silence the enemy, as well as characters like DSR Yuri that is able to stun one enemy with the ultimate, or Shasuryu that is able to taunt enemies with all of his attacks if you get lucky with the passive skill and the percentage. Even includes the Platinum Dragon Lord armor with the second skill at 6 stars because he's able to stun. So you basically use any combination of the characters that I told you to stun, taunt, or silence the enemies or freeze the enemies. You can also add this Seshi because she's able to stun the enemies with the ultimate. This Shizu is able to taunt the enemies with her passive skill and the basic attack, so she can also fits. Nigredo definitely fits here because her ultimate can silence the enemy as well as doing critical damage and area of effect damage, and her second skill is able to successfully extend the duration of one control skill by one entire round, so she can extend any kind of control effect. And Tisamuski also fits there because the second skill stuns the enemies, and if the ultimate effect of the shield wall gets removed, then it's gonna throw another laser beam that is gonna stun another one as well. So all of these characters, you can put any combination of them that you want, and then Aura. Like just to give a quick example, you can put the Tank Albedo with the Robo Hamuske, Nigredo, and then Aura. Ideally, Robo Hamuske will play first because of the SM speed. You can use it to lower everyone's defense, then you use Nigredo to silence one enemy, then you go with Albedo and taunt from one to the entirety of the enemy team, and then you use Aura to attack. Aura will attack, Nigredo will make an assist. Hamuske and Albedo are gonna tank all the damage and are gonna force the enemy to focus on themselves instead of on Aura Nigredo. And by the time that the enemy's control effects start to get dispelled, Hamuski is gonna have another turn that is gonna be able to stun another enemy. And not only that, but when it does that, Nigredo is gonna have another turn, and she could either extend the stun from Hamuske or extend any enemy that might still be taunted by Albedo, or that Albedo taunted again with her arc light during her counterattacks. That way, the enemies cannot play. They cannot throw any healing, any shield. They cannot use any buff or attack you directly. So your damage dealers are intact, while you can freely, destroy the enemies in any order that you want. And that might be the control team. So you have some variety to choose from. You have a control team, a chase team, a counter team, a buffers team, and then you have the multi-hit team. Even if the multi-hit team is a little bit more like random. And with that, I basically conclude this entire theoretical guide. And the next days, I will try to do the practical guide where I go to the arena mode and face different teams that I find here on the combat arena. I face whatever I find here, use the different teams that I said, and show basically how they perform. And I can also go to things like the expedition on hard difficulty or the expedition on hell difficulty, as well as the bosses of the map, and show the teams facing different enemies, not only teams from players. But that is going to be the next days. So with this, I conclude the Aura Villafiora theoretical guide, and yeah, it will be until the next time for the practical guide, and then after that more guides for other characters that I'm missing that I haven't done yet. So with that said, thanks for being here, and until the next time.